All right, so get ready to dive into something kind of unexpected.
Yeah.
The world of drawing animals,
Okay.
but like the really tricky ones.
Oh,
We're
sure.
going deep on this using a bunch of posts from an online forum full of artists.
Okay.
And they basically spilled the tea on which animals are the absolute hardest to get right on paper.
Oh, wow. Like a drawing challenge.
Exactly.
I'm intrigued.
It gets so much deeper than just skill, though. It's
Totally.
like understanding what makes certain creatures so visually elusive.
Makes you appreciate those artists even more, huh?
Totally. So I'm curious, have you ever tried to, sketch an animal
Oh, yeah. Tons.
and just wondered, like, why is this so much harder than it looks?
Ugh. Yes. Every time.
Right? Well, you're not alone.
Huh? Good to know.
And the top contenders for most challenging
Okay.
might not actually surprise you.
Let's hear them.
Horses, wolves, elephants, that classic trope.
Oh, classic for a reason, I'm sure.
But the WHY is where it gets juicy.
I was going to say, everyone knows horses' legs are tough.
Right. But our expert forum folks, they went deeper.
Like what?
It's not just proportion, it's how a horse's weight is always shifting.
Even when they're just standing there.
Even then,
Huh.
capturing that, poise, that sense of potential energy,
Ooh, we'll get it.
that's what separates a good horse drawing from a masterpiece.
Wow.
So it's
Fair
not
enough.
just anatomy, it's almost.
Equine psychology.
Yeah.
Now wolves. I'm guessing it's those eyes,
It
right?
had to be. So intense.
Well, eyes are part of it.
Okay.
But the forum, they highlighted the wolf's whole vibe, that grief and wildness combined.
True.
Their bodies are built for both stealth and deep power.
Right.
That's hard to show visually.
For sure.
It's not just any canine, it's the essence of a predator.
So even something like how thick you draw the lines?
Line weight, yep, could make a huge difference.
Showing that energy.
Totally.
This is so cool. What about elephants?
Okay, so elephants. I figured sheer size was intimidating enough.
Yeah, just the scale of it. Right. But the forum, they were all about the details.
Like what? I mean, they're pretty wrinkly.
Uh-huh. That's putting it mildly.
Oh, okay.
Artists were lamenting, the insane number of wrinkles and folds.
Really?
It's not flat texture. It's three-dimensional, constantly changing with light and shadow.
Yo, okay, never thought of it like that.
That level of detail.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
No wonder they find it tough.
It's like sculpting with your pencil,
Yeah.
not just sketching.
Makes total sense.
So much more insightful than elephants are wrinkly and hard.
Uh-huh, exactly. It's
Yeah.
way more nuanced.
Right. And this actually brings up something super important.
Okay, what's that?
Difficulty in art.
Yeah,
It's subjective,
of course.
but there are recurring themes
That make things tricky,
when it comes to certain animals.
like across the board, no matter who's drawing.
Yep. So hit me with it. What makes an animal a true artist's nightmare?
Okay, well, one big one is anatomy and structure.
Right.
Giraffes, for instance.
Yeah, those necks.
Those necks and those legs.
Long and awkward.
Awkward yet powerful.
It's like a recipe for disaster.
If you don't get their skeleton right.
Proportion disaster.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's like drawing two animals in one.
I love that. Two animals in one.
Yeah.
And I bet animals with unique textures are also a nightmare.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, imagine drawing every single feather
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
on a peacock's tail.
Peacocks were a big one on the forum.
Figures.
Not only is it a ton of detail,
so much.
but those colors, they shift depending on the light, too.
So true.
So it tests your patience and your understanding of color.
Like double whammy.
Totally. And then there's lizard scales. Tiny, overlapping, all catching the light differently.
You'd need a microscope to get it perfect.
Almost. It's amazing, though.
It is.
It's like nature's showing off.
daring us to capture it.
Exactly.
But honestly, isn't it that level of detail that makes it so rewarding when you do get it right?
Oh, 100%. That's why artists keep coming back for more, even when it's hard.
Makes sense.
It's a constant challenge
At a test.
of your skill and how well you observe things.
Speaking of observation,
Yeah.
this might sound funny,
Okay.
but humans were another big one on the forum.
Really?
You'd think drawing our own species would be easy.
Right. We see ourselves every day.
Right. But apparently, it's a minefield.
Huh. Interesting.
So many artists talked about the pressure of getting humans just right.
Oh, yeah.
It's like we're hyper aware of every little flaw
Both in ourselves.
and in others, so any mistake you make in a drawing
Feels huge.
feels magnified. Yeah.
I totally get that.
Do you ever feel that?
Oh, absolutely. Especially faces.
It's like you're trying to capture their soul.
More than just what they look like.
Right. And that pressure,
It can be paralyzing.
so wild how something so familiar can also be so intimidating to draw.
Yeah, it's true.
Okay, so we've covered the, heavy hitters,
Right.
but the forum also had some curveballs.
Ooh, like what?
They mentioned animals like the red-eyed tree frog
Mm.
and the fossa.
Foss?
Fossa might not be on everyone's radar, but they're tricky.
I'm going to have to Google that one. I have no idea.
Uh-huh, fair enough.
But the frog, yeah, I can see that.
Right. That vibrant green skin.
And those red eyes.
So much contrast.
Capturing that intensity of color. And the frog's delicate shape.
Not easy.
Not at all.
And the fossa. It's a cat-like mammal
Oh.
from Madagascar.
Huh.
But the forum, they were specifically talking about its gaze.
Its eyes.
Yeah. Unlike most cats, it's almost accusatory,
Really?
even unnerving, like it's judging you.
Wow.
That one little detail changes the whole mood.
So it's not just proportions and anatomy.
Right.
It's the feeling the animal gives you.
Exactly. Takes you beyond technique.
To, like, interpretation.
An artistic license.
Makes you think differently about animal art.
Speaking of interpretation,
Yeah?
the forum even went into mythical creatures.
No way.
Phoenixes, unicorns, even dinosaurs.
Like the Spinosaurus?
That's the one.
That's wild.
Right. So now the question is, how do you draw something?
That doesn't even exist.
That's it. Artists have to blend research and imagination
With their own style.
to make it believable.
Oh.
BUT, still fantastical.
I could see how that'd be tough.
So even though there's no real reference for a unicorn,
There's still pressure to get it right.
huge EE pressure.
Makes sense. Everyone has an idea of what it should look like.
Right. And then you've got the Spinosaurus,
With that big sail on its back.
trying to figure out the anatomy of something extinct for millions of years.
Yeah, that's next level.
Like paleontology meets art.
For sure.
Okay, so we've tackled horses, wolves, mythical beasts.
Mhm.
What other drawing nightmares did they throw at us?
Okay, bring it on.
Well, this one came up a lot. Dogs.
Really? Dogs?
So apparently our furry friends are no walk in the park to draw.
I'm surprised. You'd think with all the dog lovers out there,
You'd think so, right?
they'd have it figured out.
But the forum, they said it's the personality.
Oh, I see.
Every dog has a unique spark. And capturing that
That's the hard part.
is so tough.
So it's not about the breed.
Not just the breed.
It's like their soul.
It's like a portrait, but for pups.
I love that. Portraiture for pups.
Uh-huh, right. You need that soulful look, the wet nose, the floppy ear.
The little detail.
And with so many breeds,
It's-
each with its own quirks and expressions.
You're basically learning a new animal every time.
From the wrinkles of a Shar-Pei
To the fluff of a
the
Samoyed.
whole world of canine challenges.
Wow, and I bet their energy makes it even harder.
Oh, absolutely.
Trying to draw a dog in motion. Good luck.
It's like bottling lightning.
Constantly moving, wagging,
It's
sniffing.
a blur of furry energy.
I can picture artists just frantically trying to keep up.
Uh-huh, I know. But that moment when you do capture that spark, that glint in their eye,
Magic.
pure magic.
It really shows how art connects us to animals
So true.
in a deep way.
Speaking of connection,
Yeah.
I think it's time we address the elephant in the room.
Oh, you mean the irony of humans being hard to draw?
Haha, exactly. We were just talking about that.
Right. It's counterintuitive.
You'd think we'd be experts.
We see each other every day.
But the forum, full of artists struggling with this.
Really?
They talked about the pressure to get the anatomy perfect
Oh, yeah.
and the emotional complexity of the human form.
Like every line, every curve matters so much.
It's heavy stuff.
And I think there's a psychological thing, too.
What do you mean?
We're so used to seeing human faces
Every day.
that our brains kind of develop shortcuts.
Shortcuts.
Yeah, like we see the overall shape, the gesture.
But not the fine details.
Exactly. That works in real life.
But not when you're drawing.
Not if you want to capture every nuance
So our brains are filling in the blanks.
without us even realizing it.
Fascinating.
And then there's emotion.
Oh, yeah.
Human faces convey so much,
So many emotions.
and they change constantly. Try to capture that in a drawing.
That's a whole other level.
It's incredibly difficult.
Like trying to freeze a frame of a movie.
And put that feeling onto paper.
It's like we need to retrain our brains
Totally.
to see humans with fresh eyes.
Like we're encountering them for the first time.
I love that.
It's about rediscovering the wonder.
Of something we usually take for granted.
Yeah, we see it every day, but how often do we really see it?
Deep, man.
And I bet that sense of wonder is even stronger with animals
Especially the hard-to-draw ones,
Absolutely. It's a whole new world,
where art and nature meet,
full of surprises too.
like all those animals the forum mentioned.
From horses to tree frogs,
Mythical creatures to our own pets.
the animal kingdom is truly endless inspiration.
And endless challenges.
But that's what makes it so exciting, isn't it?
It totally is.
So, before we went off, we were talking about capturing a dog's personality.
Oh, yeah.
That almost magical feeling when you get it right in a drawing.
Right.
It made me think, what other things like that? Those
Yeah.
intangible qualities
Mm.
make some animals so much harder to draw.
That's a good question. We've talked a lot about anatomy, textures.
Yeah, the technical stuff.
But there's definitely something more to it.
Right. It's like some animals have this
Oh.
aura,
Ooh.
a presence you can't quite pin down.
Visually. Yeah.
And that's where observation is key.
Makes sense.
It's not enough to just see the animal.
You got to go deeper.
You have to really study
You'll observe it.
movements,
Yeah.
habits, expressions.
Like you're getting to know them,
It's about understanding the essence of
Mm.
the creature,
not just what it looks like.
more than just the physical form.
So it's almost like to be a great animal artist.
You got to be a bit of an animal behaviorist, too.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Makes sense.
I think there's truth to that.
The best drawings, they don't just show you the animal,
They show you the life in the animal.
that spark of personality, yeah.
And you know what else the forum talked about a lot?
Mm.
The community aspect.
Oh, interesting.
All these artists struggling with the same things.
With these challenging animals, yeah.
And it wasn't just complaining.
I'd
It
like,
was sharing tips, encouraging each other.
like celebrating those breakthroughs.
Exactly. And that's what I love about art communities, especially online.
There's that shared understanding.
Of the struggle,
The frustration,
but also the joy when you finally nail it.
when you get that pose, that expression just right.
Like they're all battling it out together.
Battling those artistic demons.
Right. Speaking of battles,
Yeah.
I want to circle back to those heavy hitters we talked about.
Okay.
Horses, wolves, elephants.
The big three
They really do seem like the ultimate test.
for any artist, yeah. And it's not just about how big or complex they are.
There's got to be more to it
It's those subtle things
that make them so hard to draw.
What did the forums say about those nuances?
Oh, good question. Well, for horses,
Okay.
a lot of it was about their muscles
Oh, I can see that.
and how they move.
Not just getting the anatomy right.
Right. You have to understand how those muscles work together.
To create that sense of power, that grace. It's like drawing a machine, but a living, breathing one.
An incredibly elegant machine.
And for wolves,
yeah.
so much focus on their gaze.
Those intense eyes.
It's not just about drawing eyes.
Yeah.
It's about conveying that wildness, that predatory look.
Like you can feel them watching you.
You're capturing their soul, not just the physical form.
And elephants.
Elephants?
What was their
A
deal?
lot of comments about capturing that duality,
Duality.
strength, and gentleness.
Oh, that's interesting.
How they're massive and powerful,
Right.
but also somehow graceful.
That's a tough balance.
And of course,
Don't forget the wrinkles.
haha, how could I?
They're iconic.
The forum was obsessed with them.
I mean, they are pretty prominent.
But it's more than that.
What do you mean?
They were saying it's like a roadmap
A roadmap.
of the elephant's life,
I like that.
each wrinkle telling a story.
About age, experience, wisdom.
It's amazing how something so simple can add so much depth.
Do a drawing. Yeah.
It's not just a wrinkle, it's a whole history.
And that's why drawing animals, especially the tricky
It's
ones,
so rewarding.
it's a constant discovery process.
You're learning to see the world in new ways. Speaking of new and unexpected,
Oh, yeah.
I want to talk about some of the less obvious animals from the forum.
Okay. Intrigued.
Ones that might not be on everyone's artistic radar.
But they still pose a challenge.
Exactly. Like the red-eyed tree frog.
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
That vibrant green skin.
And those shocking red eyes.
Such a tiny creature.
But capturing that color intensity, that delicate form,
Not easy.
not at all. The forum was saying how tough it is
What, specifically?
to get that green just right.
Especially against all the leaves and stuff.
Yeah, the background. And those eyes, they're like little jewels.
They demand precision.
Totally. It's like a miniature
Of
masterpiece.
daring you to capture it.
And then there's a fossa.
Which, I'll admit, I had to Google.
Uh-huh, me too. What is that thing?
Cat-like mammal
Okay.
from Madagascar.
Interesting.
But it has this unique look.
Like what?
Long, slender body, short legs. And the forum, they were fixated on its gaze.
Oh, yeah. What about
It's not like most cats. It's almost predatory.
like it's hunting you?
Haha, almost. but like it's looking through you.
Whoa, unsettling.
And that one little detail, the eyes,
It changes the whole mood.
it's the difference between a technically good drawing
And one that truly captures you.
that has that extra something
It's those subtle things.
that make all the difference.
Makes you realize how powerful those small choices can be.
Speaking of powerful, we can't forget about the mythical creatures.
Oh, right. Back to those.
Phoenixes, unicorns.
Spinosaurus
It's wild how even things that don't exist,
can be so hard to draw.
because there's no real reference.
Right. It's all imagination.
Artists have to tap into that
And their knowledge of anatomy, mythology.
to create something believable, but
Yeah.
UT also fantastical.
It's like world building on paper.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And with things like unicorns,
Yeah.
there's that extra pressure.
Of getting the mythical qualities right.
The grace, the purity.
You can't just slap a horn on a horse.
Nope. It's gotta have that magic.
That sense of wonder
And then there's the Spinosaurus.
with that arched back.
Those sails.
You see it in movies, but to actually draw it.
No, easy. The forum specifically mentioned those backs.
The arched shape.
They said it's rare in nature.
And to get that curve right, plus all the scales and textures.
Takes serious skill.
And patience, I bet.
It's like paleontology meets art
You got to be a scientist and an artist.
to pull off a good Spinosaurus.
It makes you think about all the research that goes into it.
Even for imaginary creatures, right?
Exactly. It's a constant learning process.
Speaking of learning, want to circle back to something we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
The challenge of drawing humans.
Oh, right. The irony of it all.
It's funny how we struggle with our own species.
We see ourselves every day, but...
But the forum was full of comments about it.
Really? Still struggling with it.
Especially faces, apparently.
What were they saying?
Some talked about the pressure of getting the anatomy perfect.
Oh, I get that.
Others mentioned the emotional complexity.
Like every line has to be just right.
Yeah, it's a lot of weight to carry.
And I think psychologically,
Yeah.
we're just so attuned to human faces.
Like hyper aware of every detail.
But we notice even the smallest mistakes in drawings.
Makes sense.
It's like our brains are programmed to scrutinize faces,
To analyze them.
looking for clues about emotion, intention.
So we're our own worst critics.
When it comes to drawing humans, yeah.
Fascinating how that works.
And then there's the challenge of movement, expression.
Oh, right.
Human faces are always changing.
Reflecting all these emotions.
Trying to freeze that in a drawing.
Almost impossible.
Like catching lightning in a bottle.
But even with all the challenges
There's something rewarding about it.
about drawing humans, yeah.
It's a chance to explore those depths of emotion.
To connect with our own humanity.
Like holding up a mirror.
Seeing both the beauty and the complexity.
Of what it means to be human.
And speaking of beauty and complexity,
Yeah. What you got?
one last animal the forum was really into,
Okay, I'm listening.
the peacock.
Ooh, yeah, that's a good one.
It's like it embodies both artistry and challenge.
Those tail feathers, those colors.
The forum was buzzing about how hard it is.
To capture all
The
that.
sheer number of
The
details.
subtle shifts in color.
It's like trying to draw a rainbow.
But with a million tiny pieces.
And then the peacock's head.
Right, with that crest, those eyes.
Even without the tail, it's tough.
Like nature saved the best and hardest for last.
Aha, I love that. But for artists who are up for the challenge,
Drawing a peacock.
it must be so
To
rewarding.
see that burst of color, all those details.
You know, when you captured a piece of its magnificence.
It really shows off an artist's skill.
And this whole discussion, I think it highlights something even bigger.
Okay, what's that?
The power of art to connect us with nature.
Yeah, I totally agree.
It's not just about technique, it's about appreciation of all the beauty and complexity out there.
And finding joy in the creative process.
And that joy, I think it's even stronger.
When you're drawing something difficult.
It's like you're pushing yourself further.
Both technically and creatively.
And when you finally get it,
That sense of accomplishment.
it's amazing.
It's like, hey, I can do this.
I'm capable of more than I thought.
That's a great message for everyone listening.
Don't be afraid to tackle those tough subjects.
The ones that intimidate you.
Embrace the challenge.
Embrace the process.
Embrace the joy.
And remember, there's a whole community out there.
To support you.
So next time you see an animal that makes you think, I could never draw that.
Take a moment to appreciate it.
The challenge, the complexity, the beauty,
And then
grab your pencil.
and go for it.
You might surprise yourself.
You might even discover a hidden talent.
Or, at the very least, a new appreciation for nature.
Well said. All right, well, that's a wrap on this part of our deep dive.
Into the wonderfully challenging world of animal drawing.
But don't go anywhere. We'll be right back to wrap things up.
And explore that question we left you with.
What animal would you choose to draw? And we're back for our final deep dive into the wild world of animal drawing.
Those creatures that make artists everywhere want to tear their hair out.
Haha, but in a good way.
Right, the good kind of frustration.
Before the break, we left you with a challenge.
Oh, yeah.
To think about what animal, no matter how difficult, you, Gady, wanted to draw.
What sparked that artistic itch?
And I'm curious, as you were thinking about it,
Yeah.
did anything surprise you
About your own choices.
about what caught your eye? Yeah.
It's funny how that works.
Right, like this simple question
It can reveal so much.
about what kind of art we're drawn to.
Totally. Some people might go for those majestic animals.
The ones that really test your skill.
Show off your technique.
Others might be more into those delicate, detailed creatures.
The ones that require a ton of patience.
And a steady hand.
Or maybe it's those animals with that, mysterious vibe.
Ooh. Yeah.
The ones that make you want to capture more than just what they look like.
More than just the physical form.
It's about the feeling they give you.
And that, I think, is what makes this whole discussion so cool.
It goes beyond drawing.
It's about observation, interpretation.
Connecting with nature in a deeper way.
Looking back at all those forum posts,
Yeah.
I'm struck by how much they focused on the essence of the animal.
Not just getting the anatomy right.
More than just a copy of what you see.
It's about capturing the spirit of the creature.
The personality, the soul. And that, I think, is the mark of a true artist.
Being able to see beyond the surface.
And convey that through your art.
It brings us to a key takeaway from this deep dive.
Okay, what's that?
That difficulty often points to something deeper.
Something worth exploring.
Exactly. It's a reminder that those really rewarding challenges.
The ones that make you want to pull your hair out.
Those are often the ones where we grow the most.
Where we learn the most.
As artists, yeah.
So maybe it's not about avoiding those difficult animals.
Maybe it's about embracing them.
Seeing them as opportunities.
To push your boundaries.
To refine your skills.
To deepen your understanding.
Of both art and the natural world.
Couldn't have said it better myself. And that's a message for everyone.
Whether you're a pro or just starting out.
Don't shy away from those challenges.
Experiment, make mistakes, have fun with it.
And remember, there's a whole community of artists out there.
To support you, to inspire you.
So the next time you see an animal that makes you think, whoa, I could never draw that.
Take a second to really appreciate it.
The challenge, the beauty, the complexity.
And then grab your pencil and just go for it.
Who knows what you'll discover?
Maybe a hidden talent.
Or a new appreciation for the amazing diversity of nature.
Beautifully said. And on that note, we're wrapping up this deep dive
into the wonderfully wild world of animal drawing.
Thanks for joining us.
Keep exploring, keep creating, and keep diving deep.
Until next time.